Well, good morning. Good morning. Everybody having a good day? Good. Even if you weren't, you probably wouldn't say anything if you smoke, right? I'm going to start off today by telling you something that I know is true, and you know is true. It's not going to be earth-shattering. And the reality is, you know it's true not simply because it's in the Bible. You know it's true because your life has proven that it's true. And here's the crazy thing about it. Even though you and I both know that it's true, we still have a hard time with what to do with that truth. How to respond to truth, how to live that, how to behave in a way that really captures and makes this truth true. But here's the truth. What you say can preserve life or destroy it. And you already knew that, didn't you? And you knew it again, not because it was in the Bible, you knew just from life experience. Because all of us at times have had those wonderful moments when somebody said a word that just seems not only kind of stab you in the back, but seems to pierce your heart. A thought was sometimes intentional. Sometimes it's an offhanded comment, but it just hits you at the exact right moment. And thankfully, we've had these other opportunities when somebody has come along and said something that it just seemed like it was just the right thing to say at the right time. They were clueless that it was the right thing at the right time to say something like that. Here's the reality. Every word that you say and that I say is a potential healer or killer. I want to make it right as a healer or killer, all right? If I'm yourself, right? But every word we say has that potential. And yet, we know that's true. But how often do you think about the things that come out of your mouth? And if you're like me, most of the time my life is on autopilot. Thankfully, I have my foot close to the brake because there's times, as I told you before, I get paid to be good. If you're here for the first time, you all are good for nothing. That's the inside joke. So I have my foot close to the brake, but the reality is, I just got to run on autopilot. And it goes, and sometimes those things that come out are not really kind of filtered through any kind of system, they're just there. And sometimes my good nature kind of kidding can hit the spot that isn't so good natured or some takings can. There's no expiration date to painful words. True, right? Wouldn't it be great if they had an expiration date to words? You can feel that thing, you can look at the back and say, oh, let's see, April 24th, 2014, that baby's done, you know? You throw it, but it doesn't work that way. And the truth of the matter is, you could probably right now, if I gave you a moment to kind of go to that place in your life that you don't like to go to, if I gave you a moment, you could probably go back to something that was said at the playground, something that was said at home, something that was said in a job situation, somebody said somebody you considered a friend, that to this very day, that one word, that one feeling can bring back that whole picture. For me, one of those words was back in 6th grade, playing out on a football field, out in the big field we had at our school. And we were playing a game called Smear the Guy with the Ball. I'll put it in that term. Not a politically correct term that we use for the smear the whoever it was. But the idea was, whoever had the ball, everybody tried to tackle it. And your job was to try to escape until somebody was tackling you and then to throw the ball, get rid of it, and then you chase the other team with the ball. And the whole thing was just kind of a silly game to burn off energy, Chris, and to have a good time. But in the midst of that, and there's always this, when you get a group of kids, especially boys here, I don't know how girls do this, I know they have their picking orders, but boys, you always figure out kind of where you're at in the placement. Who's sort of at the top of the food chain, who's at the bottom, nobody ever wants to be at the bottom, so you're always close to the bottom, you're trying to figure out who's actually below you, right? And I was always, up to my senior year in high school, I was always like the smallest kid in my class, or the second smallest. Always been the runt. And I remember out there, and this was back in the early 70s. And I saw this pop at that time. American Woman. Anybody remember American Woman? It's actually been read down here fairly recently, you know. And I hated that song ever since. Because as we were playing to smear the guy with the ball, something happened, you know, and he got hit, and somebody said something, I said something, and somebody called me a name, and then I had to figure out another kid to call something because I didn't want to be at the bottom, and somebody started singing the American Woman song, and that was my nickname for a while, American Woman. Thank you very much for honoring that wonderful memory from my childhood. Thank you. Yeah, one eye. Everybody else is laughing, one eye, you know? But I can remember to this day, and how, even to this day, I cannot listen to that song. That's not because I think the song's a bad song, it's because of where I go, where it leads me to. That's just one example. And I know you, even today, probably carry some of those same kind of feelings. Those moments when something got said that just, even today, just makes you feel so vulnerable, so hurt, so small. Also, your words have power. Oh, the healers and killers, your words have power, incredible power. And you know that's true, and again, to those things, we know it's true because we have recognized that other people have had words to our life that have incredible power. Some of you are in the jobs you're at today because of what somebody said to your life. Positively, or maybe you're doing the job today just to show them. Words have such a power. I mean, if you've heard much about the news this last week, the LA Clippers, the National Basketball Association team, their owner got tape recorded with words, and he discovered the power of words. Not in a positive way, but in a very real, harsh way. And he's experiencing the payoff of having power behind words. But he's not the first, and sadly, he will not be the last person whose words show that they have incredible power. The reality is words form us, and they deform us. Other people's words, like our words to them, even the words that we say have that effect on us. I guess a lot of you remember being a kid. And the first time you used a swear word, don't look at your kids right now, just look at me, alright? And just shake your head this way, we'll know what's happening, alright? And the power that came with that moment, because you were doing something you weren't supposed to do, those words seemed to have power. And if you kind of went down that path, you know how those words began to deform you when you began to have that kind of language, because that was the thing to do. Takes a hold of our lives. And the reality is your deepest hurts and greatest joys have come through words. We've already talked about the deepest hurts, but think about the greatest joys. Somebody calls you and says, hey, you got the job. Good news, right? Never guess what? We're pregnant. That's the joy there, you know? But isn't that true? I mean, your greatest joys, your deepest hurts have come through words. Not just specifically through action, but through words. And it reminds us again just how powerful our words are. True? Incredible power of words. The truth is, every one of us looks at ourselves through lenses. And nobody has a lens that isn't distorted by something. Some of our lenses are, a little smudged. Some of our lenses are a little scratched. Some of our lenses are warped. Some of them are cracked. And the problem with the lenses that we all look out is that when we look through a lens of our life, those smudges, that distortions, end up making us have judgment in our lives And everything we look at is automatically judged. Even before we take it in, because we're looking at it through those lenses. And those smudges, those distortions, play out in our lives. Sometimes in a very sad and painful way. But the reality is, let's be truthful. Sometimes you are. Right? Sometimes you are not happy. Sometimes you are having a bad haircut. Sometimes the dress doesn't make you look fat. Sometimes you are having a bad day. Sometimes you are irritable. Sometimes you are a mess. Sometimes life doesn't seem like it's worth going on over. Sometimes it seems like you have to just chuck it all away. Sometimes. But here's the truth about sometimes. Sometimes isn't and doesn't have to be always. And the thing that some of us struggle with is the all or nothing of the words that go through our minds, through our hearts, and to our lives. And so today I want to talk just a little about this whole idea of words and how they empty us, and how we treat others. And the words we use aren't important. They're vital. Because our words can fill somebody up, or they can empty them where there's nothing. So before we jump into any farther, I want to ask you just together, let's pray one more time today. Lord, it's a place that we don't like to talk about. A place that I don't like to go. Because it reminds me how much of a mess I am. It reminds me of how much, while I know what's true, I have a hard time really accepting and living it out. It reminds me again of how much power I've given to other people in my life. And I don't like that. But I'm thankful again to know that there's a higher voice in my life. And I pray that truth would ring out for me and for the people gathered here today and the people that are watching online today. That there's a higher voice, a truer voice, a clearer picture that you want me to see of myself and that you want me to see of other people. So today, Lord, I just want to open myself up one more time to you and your work. And to ask you not only to convince me of what's true, but to help me begin to live that way. As you being the only voice that really should matter in my life. So I just give you this time now and ask you to do what only you can do. In your name. Amen. John 10:10, one of my favorite verses in the Bible. This is not the part that's my favorite part, it's the second part, but here's the first part. And Jesus tells us the first part in order to really appreciate the second part, and I'll get to the second part later. I'm just talking fast now because I want to get back to the first part. Here we go. The thief, and he's talking about the devil. The thief approaches with malicious intent, looking to steal, slaughter, and destroy. That's a true statement that Jesus makes. It's a true picture of what's true in your life and in my life. There's a thief that is constantly always there looking around your hearts and your lives, who is always looking to steal something from you, looking to slaughter something from you, kill something in you, ultimately looking to destroy you in one way or another. And the problem for all of us is, we don't know where that attack's going to come from. We don't know, with this malicious intent, when he's going to steal something from us, or when he's going to slaughter something, or when he's going to destroy something in our lives. I'm guessing some of us in here today have had that wonderful experience. Coming home from Or being out someplace and discovering that your house has been broken into. And all the emotions and thoughts that go through that. That something's been not only stolen, but something has really been killed, your sense of safety. Something has been destroyed. And now you feel vulnerable. And Jesus tells us this before he tells us the second part, because he wants us to understand it's not just this all wonderful and good on this one side. There's this constant threat on this other side. And the crazy thing is, not only is it an outside threat, it's an inside threat. And it's a threat that we sometimes unknowingly and sometimes knowingly participate in having these lives. Over in Revelation, same guy, John, will write these words. The accuser of brothers, again he's talking about the devil, the accuser of our brothers and sisters, who accuses them before our God day and night. Just to get that picture in your mind for a moment. I don't know what your picture of heaven is like. I think it sounds like a pretty cool place. It sounds like a noisy place when you listen to John's descriptions and angels praising, Jesus and the Father and all this kind of going on. And there's this constant kind of sense of presence. But apparently there's this other thing that's always going on too. Day and night, this accuser stands before God and says, hey, what about her? What about him? What about her? What about him? And him and her and him? Hey, Jesus. Hey, God the Father. Hey, Holy Spirit. What about them, right? And the sad thing is, he is accurate in a lot of his accusations. And at other times, he's not so accurate. But it doesn't matter. His whole job is to accuse us. To put us in the worst possible light. And you take those two items. And then we have this accuser that hangs out there. And we have this thief, same being that's out there. Who's looking to accuse us, who's looking to destroy us, who's looking to kill something in us, who's looking to steal something from us. And we are up against some huge, huge odds. In fact, here's some of the accuser's tactics, which is kind of psychological stuff, but it fits this whole model. I'm just going to walk these pretty quick. There's the idea of over-generalizing. Using those terms like always and never and no one or everyone. I'm always forgetful. So you know what happens? I'm kind of forgetful. I'm never on time. No one really cares for me. Everyone makes fun of me. We begin to have these big generalizations about life, and that's how we begin to see life. And the whole life seems to turn out that way. There's the idea of filtering, where we filter our experiences for evidence of unworthiness. Somebody says something and we don't really want to take it for the positive, because there's got to be something in there. So we filter everything through those kind of down, these accusations that go on with it. There's this polarized thinking. I'm either going to get into the program or blow my whole future. I'm either going to say yes to my proposal, or I'm going to be out in the streets homeless because I have no one that'll love me. We can make these huge jumps. Another one of the tactics is this over-personalization. That we begin to believe that everything revolves around us. And not in the way that we think we're all so special, but we think, are you guys talking about me over there? And you're laughing, that can't be good for you, right? And everything begins to be, everything is about us, and it gets overwhelming because everything is, and it can't be good for us. There's the thought projection. Your boss, you see your boss kind of hanging around your desk and you're thinking, he's watching my every move because he wants to fire me. You got to, have lunch with your best friend and you got a little late, you're thinking, she's awful quiet. She's mad at me because I got late here. And you begin to, this whole thing kind of just blows up in your mind because you're projecting on them whatever these feelings are inside. Or this whole emotional reason. I feel, so I am. I feel useless. So I am useless. I feel unworthy. So I am. I feel ugly. So I am ugly. I feel dumb. So I am dumb. You keep finding this whole package. And here's the crazy thing. You got the accuser's tactics and our own wire, our own stuff that kind of comes up. And you throw in it an occasional help from somebody else. You have this deadly, deadly mix. This toxic mix that sadly all of us happen to live life. And it bleeds into our lives in so many different ways. And we look for breaks from it in so many different ways. And it just kind of piles up in so many different ways. So the question is, what can I do about it? What can you do about it? Here's the second part of my favorite verse. Jesus says, folks, listen. I have come. The main reason I came down here to this planet is so that you could have life. Life in all of its fullness. The idea of life with meaning. Life with purpose. Life not filled up with a bunch of stuff, but life filled up with a bunch of meaning. And he says, I tell you that because you know there's this thief on the other side that's always there looking for ways to steal things from you, to kill things in your life, to destroy things in your life. But I'm here because I want you to have life. To have it in its fullness. And for a lot of us, the only way we can experience that fullness that Jesus talks about is to experience not only salvation, but the healing aspect of salvation in our lives. And to believe not only has to forgive me for my sins, He's also beginning to work in my life and heal those other things that have happened. Those words and things that have stuck around. So now what can I do? Let's walk through this. First of all, the first thing you and I can do is to rethink how I see my faults, failures, and flubs. To rethink how I see those things. Because for most of us, when we think about our faults, our failures, and our flubs, we don't want anybody knowing about it, right? We kind of like to hide behind the curtains. But let's walk through some ideas of how we can rethink our faults, failures, and flubs. Here's the reality. Everybody makes them. How many in this room have ever made a big failure and then done a huge flaw, a big flaw? Everybody raise your hand. Raise them high. Act like you're proud. Keep them up alive. This is an important moment. Everybody raise your hand. If you don't, I'm going to ask you, I'll figure out a way to find a flub and failure. You're failing right now, to be honest. But I want you to do this. I want you to put up your hands for one more second, all right? Or 2 seconds, or actually about 15 seconds. Keep your hands up, and I want you to look around. Don't look at the people that don't have their hands up and think, oh, you know, But I want you to notice that pretty much everybody has their hands up, at least all the truthful people do at this moment. Which is important to know, that everybody makes them. That nobody is, and that should bring a smile to our face, right? That's right, not because, they're not perfect, I think, but the reality is, none of us are. And the way to rethink these faults and failures, the things that we want them, that we hide from, is to say, everybody makes them. Everybody makes them. And no one likes them. I've never met somebody go, woo, man, I just screwed up big time, man, this is unbelievable. Maybe this is going to pay off, woo, you know, check it out, we can get a paper tomorrow, you know, news tonight, it's going to look good. Nobody does that. Nobody likes that's why everybody tries to hide all those things and explain them away. Few of us learn from them. You ever found yourself having the same thing happen multiple different times? And it's not because you're not a smart person. Well, maybe I don't know what your IQ is, but the reality is it's most likely because you have failed to learn an important lesson from them. And until we learn that lesson, it seems like those kind of things kind of come around, keep coming around so that we'll learn from them. But oftentimes we see faults, our failures and flubs, things I want to stay the farthest away. And we tend to have this response, which is run away from them, hide from them, as opposed to learning from them. See, we see our mistakes as failures and not feedback. And what if the failures in your life, the faults in your life, the flubs in your life, are simply like saying, maybe you need to rethink how you're doing this thing in life. Which is not a bad thing, right? Sometimes we need some outside voice saying, that's probably not a good way to go in life. And we take our mistakes as personal, not as a process of life. And remember, everybody raises their hands when we ask, who's messed up, right? They are a part of life. That people go through life, that stuff happens. Sometimes you can control it, oftentimes you can't control it, it just happens. I'm always amazed when people are in a car accident and they get all mad at somebody else. When something, the whole idea behind an accident is simply that it was right? Sometimes it wasn't anybody's fault, sometimes something just happened, Now sometimes it's somebody's fault. Somebody texts while you're driving. You make up while you're driving. I'm not talking about those guys. But sometimes an accident is simply an accident, right? You have no way to see that stuff behind your car, And we take these mistakes personally, and I think we take them so personally. Not simply because of what they say to us, but because of what other people will say about us in our lives. See, I don't think most of us have a fear of failure. I think we have a fear of what other people will say when it doesn't happen to us. And it's there, I think, we make our identity mistake. That we give power, incredible power to other people in our life. And I'm talking about myself in this. I'm one of those jobs. I like people who like me. And it's a terrible spot to be in, to be honest with you. Because there are times when I shouldn't be liked. And I should be willing to say, no, this is how it is, and I don't care what it is, because this is for a greater good, this is for a more important thing. But it's hard because I didn't want to be liked. It's a struggle I have, and I guess there might be a struggle you have with just allowing other people's voices to be so important into your life. So what can I do? Recognize and live like the accuser has been defeated. One person. This is yeah. Woo, man, that is not. But this is key, folks. And it's one of the hardest things you can do, but it's one of the most important choices that you and I can make. To choose to not only recognize, but also to live like the accuser has been destroyed and defeated. Because the reality is, he has. Check this out. Back to Revelation, where he was talking before about what the accuser does, about every day and night before God. Look at Tim, look at Jim, look at Susie, look at her, look at Sandra, They have defeated him, past tense, by the blood of the Lamb, by what Jesus provided, the healing power of his blood, and by their testimony. I appreciated what Timothy told me after the service last week, that we were talking about testimony, and somebody, I told him, I don't know who it was, I give you credit wherever you are, that you can't have a testimony without a test, right? It kind of goes along together. And they've defeated them by their own test, and they're coming through it, and by the blood of Jesus. And notice this. And they did not love their lives so much that they were afraid to die. Somebody say, uh-oh. Because we think, woo, defeated, yeah, baby. We stand the victory, right? Victory doesn't always look like we think victory looks like. But that doesn't mean that he hasn't been defeated. Then go on and say, therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who live in heaven rejoice, because that's where he keeps all this accusation going, and he's been defeated. He has been crushed. See, you need to choose, and I need to choose to believe God and not the others. And it's one of the most important things that you can do, and that I can do, and it's one of the hardest things to do. Because we put so much value, so much weight in everything. We give them so much power. And at times we need to battle that. And to face that emotional feeling we have towards that with the truth and the reality. Paul makes this great statement. So now, there is no condemnation for those who belong to Christ Jesus. No condemnation. The accuser's over there yapping away. Yep. Jesus doesn't care what he's saying. He says, now, those who belong to Christ Jesus, there's no condemnation. But watch where he goes with this. Doesn't mean because there's no condemnation, then He no longer loves us. If we have trouble or calamity or are persecuted, it's off the line, doesn't it? Or hungry, or destitute, or in danger, or threatened with death. Does that mean He doesn't love us when we experience those things? Help me out here, folks. Don't miss this point. See, we want to rejoice. No condemnation now in Christ Jesus. Right? I love you. There's no condemnation, so none of you can condemn me. But Paul wants to have a real, live picture of how things work at times. And just because there's no condemnation doesn't mean there's never stuff that happens around us. We don't live in this bubble that now protects us from all this stuff. But he says, does that mean He doesn't love us if we experience this stuff? He says, no. It doesn't mean that He doesn't love us. Despite all of these things, despite all of them, overwhelming victory is ours through Christ who loves us. Overwhelming victory that doesn't seal away with the realities of life, but changes how we look at those things, how we feel about those things, how we live through those things. And I'm convinced, he says, that nothing can ever separate us from God's love. Nothing can do that. Lastly, what can I do? I can take responsibility for my words. You ever notice when you hear a sermon, how many times you think, God, I wish someone else was hearing this? It's always easy to think about them and what they need, right? When in reality, it's about me and what I need. To take responsibility for my words. And not to blow them up. I mean, I've been doing this pastor thing long enough, talking to people at times, and sometimes, the excuse is, well, I did that, yes, but, and here's the explanation of why. I'm the victim here, so I would just lash out. Because I'm the victim, it's okay for me to do this. To use these kinds of words. Or the one I love, sarcastic, the one I love is when somebody comes to me, I want to see you, Pastor. So I need to talk to you. And you hear the sound, at least in my head, it goes like this. Beep, 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 as the truck backs up. All the stuff comes out. And I'm expected to take it because, again, I'm paid to be good, right? So I can just throw everything at you because you have to take it because you're the pinnacle of Christianity. You're the path. And there's something that's gone categorically wrong in our lives. Where we feel that it's all right to say whatever we want to and how we want to, hurtfully, and it's incredible to me. At least I appreciate them saying it in my face. The worst part is when they go talk about everybody else. You ever notice how tough people are when they're not face to face with somebody? Man, I told what I told them. I told them just like this, and I'll give it to them. And here's how the conversation really looks. And the truth is, I think we live in a crazy age in this world's history. I mean, we have so much stuff, so much information, so much is so easy. I mean, we have instant messaging and Facebook. Sometimes I can't believe when people wait up. There seems to be no filter for us. I feel it, so I'm going to let everybody know that I feel it. And I think you ought to let somebody know how you feel. You just want to let everybody know how you feel, But it's amazing how hostile and vitriolic and angry people can be when they're at a keyboard. Hit that sin. How many of you have ever sent an email that you wish you could have taken back? Come on now, confession is good for the soul, they say. Isn't it amazing? lost that filter. We've lost the filter that time at times gets us. Now back in the day, way back in the day, before we had cars and phones and all this kind of stuff, and you got mad in town, by the time you got home, you already got on the story multiple times. It took you an hour and a half to get home, you worked it all out, right? Now you get mad. Everybody knows I'm mad, right? And then when you got to come down later and everybody else is all excited because everybody knows. My point is this, we need to take responsibility for our words. I mean, Proverbs, the last part of that statement really good before. What do you say can preserve life and restore it? He says, so you must accept the consequences of your words. Because they have consequences. And they have real consequences. Because they can preserve life, or they can destroy life. So you can pray every day to be more loving and compassionate with anger in your mouth. You can every day. Pray. But until you start acting in that direction, nothing's going to change. And I believe one of the greatest works that Jesus does in any of our lives is this gift of what's described of the reality of God's presence in our life. Something's called the fruit of the Spirit. Kind of gets lost there. He starts talking about the evidence that God is active in your life is that you're becoming more loving, more joyful, more kind, more patient. Right at the end, there's this one word that sometimes gets lost because it doesn't feel as good as joy and love and compassion. This idea of self-control. It's easy to understand why it gets lost, because that sounds like we've got to do something. We've got to change something. That just sounds like it's something that's got to ooze out of me. The reality is we build those things in by working them out in our lives. I just want to challenge you as we finish this morning to give power in your life to the right person. And that's God. To let His words about you be the truth that drives everything else. And in turn, you be responsible for the words that come out of you. That doesn't mean you can't say tough things at times, because sometimes we have to say tough things. But it's about the intent behind those tough things and how those things come out. And it's about slowing down and filtering those things versus the 140 characters or less out of the call. They need about 10 here. Bam! Goes. We're done. Let's pray as we close there, right? Lord, you know. You know our hearts. You know our minds. You know our intents. You know our whole life. You've been there each and every step. You've been there with words that crush our spirit. You've been there with words that just repeat the moment that we keep going and we keep hanging on. And I would just pray today that you would work in our lives, to heal our lives, to take this deforming that's happened, those words, and deform us into somebody that is much more centered on you and being in presence in our own words. Lord, we ask you for forgiveness for those times when we have been the crushing and the crusher. And to take that confession and turn it into repentance. Turn it into changing the way we think. And just as important, the way we act.